Bardown Breakdown, episode 100. Again, that's 100 episodes that they've let us do. Why? I don't really know. Someone's going to catch on eventually, and they're going to cancel us. But we got the homie Derek from State Champs, and he's here with us. And we're going to talk some hockey. We're going to talk some State Champs. We're going to talk some Albany. We're going to talk a lot of stuff. But the first, probably and most important question is, how are you hanging on after the Bills lost?
Well, luckily, I'm upstate New York. I'm from Albany, so I was actually raised a Jets fan, so I was born to lose,
okay.
So I'm pretty used to this. I was excited to watch the game. I was rooting for the Bills. Honestly, it would have been a history book setting for them, and it was a history book season for them. So it was a good game to watch. I think that was. I mean, it's their best season ever. So they got a future now. Something to look forward to.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen is some kind of a competitor, man. Just like Kansas City being Kansas City. I mean, they're just an unbelievable team, and they were able to bottle him up. But I mean, watching him play against the Ravens and the Colts, and just he really is a special player. So knowing they're going to build the franchise around him is kind of cool. But anytime anyone's from upstate, I always gotta just assume that you're part of the Bills Mafia, putting people through tables.
I love nothing more. I love nothing more than watching all the viral videos of people missing tables. That's probably my favorite. But I'm from Albany. I was raised a Jets fan, but and now I actually go to a lot of Giants games more than Jets games. But not that they've been doing very good at all either. Yeah. But more importantly, I just go to drink and have a good time and talk about that I'd rather be at a hockey game. So that's
hell yeah, man. So let's just dive right in, man. So if the world doesn't already know, even though you're a homie from Albany, you're a Dallas Stars fan. Isn't that right?
I am. Everybody always asks why, doesn't get it. But yeah, I've been a Dallas Stars fan since I was pretty little. Since they won the Cup, like probably the year that they won the Cup in '99 was when I started becoming a bandwagon young 6-year-old Dallas Stars fan. And then from there on out, it was wishful thinking from '99 until about last year. So I've stayed loyal though. But as someone from New York, everyone's like, why? I think I was at an AHL game in Albany at some point with my stepbrothers at the time, and each of us got given a puck from my dad or whatever, bought us all a puck, and they gave me a Dallas Stars puck. And I went home and looked it up, and they ended up winning the Cup that year. I was like, I'm going to be a Dallas Stars fan, and like worshipped Mike Madonna my whole life. And like I grew up playing hockey since I was little. So, but yeah, I stayed loyal, and they haven't been good since then. And it feels good that they now are like have a future this year, and obviously last year moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had a feeling it had to have something to do with Mike Modano, because every kid that played hockey in the United States, like, he was the face of USA hockey.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to my opinion, the best American-born hockey player still. Yeah, I was a left-handed hockey player. I used his curve always since I was a little kid. Going to the backstory too, like my dad, he owned a hockey rink when I was little. Like from when I was like maybe 3 until I was 12, he owned like one of those mini hockey rinks, like a little training facility. It was like the size of like the size of a neutral zone basically. Another funny story too is we used to have these like 3-on-3 tournaments in there, like for like youth hockey leagues and whatnot. One year Bobby Hull came to it. And it was he came to it. So we started calling it the Bobby Hull 3-on-3 tournament every year, and because he came one year, and it was in 2000 or 2001, I think. And so the year after Brett won, his son, with the Stars in '99, and he brought this signed, big signed framed picture of Brett Hull scoring the double overtime game winner for the Cup from '99, signed by Brett Hull, and it was whoever won the tournament was going to get it. And me and my stepbrothers ended up winning the tournament. I still have the photo. It's pretty cool. So that played into why I'm still a Stars fan as well.
Wow. So your dad, I'm guessing, is also a huge hockey fan if he has this facility. Who was the team your dad rooted for?
My dad was actually always a Blackhawks fan, and he still is to this day. Okay. So there's a little bit of rivalry there. We used to always go. I'd take him to when, as of recently, I started like going with him when the Hawks play like the Rangers, and we'll go down to Madison Square Garden, and he'll do the same for me. We'll go down and watch the Stars play. So, but I don't think we've ever seen like a Hawks Stars game because we're still from New York, so that just doesn't really happen unless we travel, obviously. Yep. But yeah, my dad was my coach. He was a coach, owned the rink, was like, he taught me how to play, he put me on skates like basically right when I could walk when I was little. My dad played in the OHL too in like the 70s. Yeah, my dad, not a team anymore, but he played for Halliburton, the Halliburton Blades. They folded like maybe 20 years ago. He's very old, but he played in the OHL for a few years and then ended up breaking his back. And that was the end of his professional career. And then he took maybe like 10, 15 years off, had me, and then just raised me. And I was like his, little son that he had to build up into this hockey player. So I played my whole life, and he was always my coach. So it was this weird thing, having like the son and the son is like the captain of the team, and he's the coach, and like other play. It was this weird thing,
I love that. So I guess I want to talk about like the Albany hockey scene, because maybe our national listeners don't know this. Like, it's a very divided region when it comes to sports allegiances. Like Tom pointed out, like assuming that you were a Bills fan, but like people from Albany like the Bruins, they like the Rangers, not so many Islander fans. And then like you guys had the Albany Devils, which was the AHL team. And the Albany Devils in the 90s, according to my wife, was like a big deal. Like that, like the whole city came out to support them. And
they were really good back then.
Yeah, the Thunderbirds, really good, right? Or the Firebirds, or what was the arena football team?
Firebirds. Yeah, the Albany Firebirds. They were the arena football team, doing really well. We had like a crazy sports, just all around. Like all the Albany sports were so gathered around and backed back then. Actually, and it wasn't the Albany Devils back then. They were called the Albany River Rats.
The River Rats.
The most terrible name for a hockey team, and gave us such a bad reputation. But I used to go to those games all the time. Obviously, there was still the Devils farm team at that point, but we were filling up like the home arena, and they were winning. They were doing really good. Then they changed to the Devils, the Albany Devils, and I don't know what year that was. They didn't do very well after that, though. No. And then eventually they folded, so they're not a team anymore.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad to see, because that Times Union Center now, like, that they tried bringing the arena football team back, and that already folded. They lost their AHL team, so, like, who plays there? Just Siena?
I guess they do the one college game a year, which is the Mayor's Cup between Union College and RPI. But that's the only time they put ice on the arena then, I guess, for that. Other than that, maybe like Disney on Ice, but like there's nothing like continuous going on out there. I don't even know.
Yeah.
And that surprises me. I didn't know that the arena football team folded already. I went to the opener of the first season of that. It was actually really fun. But I guess nobody cared after that.
Yeah,
it's
crazy.
Alternative football leagues don't seem to last very long. I mean, the XFL got one season, then folded, and then got another one season, and then folded. It's just so hard to compete. But so I have a question. So you said you grew up playing hockey, and obviously your other passion, as you are in state champs, is music. So. Was there a crossroads for you, like personally, when you were like, I could go down this avenue of maybe trying to be a pro hockey player or following that dream? And then the other crossroads would be, and I really love music. I want to, be in a band and try to follow that path. Like, can you kind of zone in on what that crossroad really was?
Yeah. So it did get to a weird time, I guess, towards the end of high school. It's funny because my parents were separated. I lived with my mom in one town. My dad lived maybe 20 minutes away. And I was like going back and forth. He was my hockey coach. I played youth hockey up there. And then when youth hockey runs out, after like Bantams or midget was or whatever, I was maybe like a sophomore, junior in high school. And the high school I was going to didn't have a high school hockey team. But where my dad lived, his school district did have a hockey team. So I ended up switching schools from my just for my senior year to go play high school hockey where my dad was. And I played the season there, and then I just transferred back with like 2 months left of my senior year of high school to graduate with all of my friends. It was a really weird senior year of high school for me. But then I was also really into graphic design as well. I was working for a merch company doing designs for bands. So it's kind of like jack of all trades, but I don't know what the heck I want to do, like what my future is really. I was also started the band my senior year of high school. So there's music, there's art, there's hockey, and I don't really know what's going on. The only college I got into, because I didn't have very good grades, was an art school. It was called SUNY Purchase. It's a state school in New York.
Sure.
And they don't have a hockey program either. So now I'm like, but my dad is on my back like, well, you could go move up to Canada and live with a French-speaking home and try to like get in some camps and get some OHL tryouts, do this, or like play some type of junior hockey up there. That seems scary to me. So I ended up going to art school. I went to SUNY Purchase for the 1 year, and while also starting the band, we started to like tour a bunch on the weekends, and then it turned into week-long tours. By the end of my first freshman year of college, I started like missing weeks and weeks of college, and I'm like failing out of all my classes. And then at the end of the year, we got our first record deal offer from Pure Noise Records, which was a big thing for us. And all they said was, if you have a job, quit it. If you're in school, drop out. You're going to buy a van. You're going to go on tour for the next 5 years, and let's see what happens. So then I'm going to my parents. I'm like, listen, we got this offer. Now I know that like you've been invested with this, but I'm dropping out of school, going on tour with my friends, and let's see how that goes. So it was a big roller coaster of like going from this idea that hockey to now art, and then music I ended up with, and I'm glad that I stuck with that. So I guess I have no regrets in the long run, but do I miss hockey? I really do. I haven't played since like 2011, something like that. So I guess it's been almost 10 years since I've like played competitively. Little like pick up in men's leagues here and there. I love a good beer league every once in a while.
Oh yeah. So I guess I don't want to abandon the Albany conversation quite yet, because like I said, I lived in Albany for 4 years, so I feel like I kind of have like my pulse on my finger on the pulse there. So, you know, you mentioned that the band kind of started your senior year of high school and then carried over into your freshman year of college. Like the Albany music scene, at least when I was there wasn't a lot happening. Like you had Bogies, which was like the small venue that was like a dump, but you know, it was your dump, I'm sure. And but then there was like the extreme opposite with Northern Lights and Upstate Concert Hall. So like a band that's starting out, it's kind of like you grow out of Bogies really quick, and then there's not like an in-between venue for you to like make your stepping stones to then get to the point where you're playing Upstate Concert Hall. So
yeah, there still isn't either. There's really only like tiny little venues, bars and clubs, and then there's the Upstate Concert Hall, which holds almost 2,000 people. So it's like there's no middle ground there for the scene to build and for local bands to build. People have tried. There's been little like venues that pop up for maybe a few months, and then it goes away. But yeah, when we first started, Albany was always really heavier based music scene. The local scene was all metal and hardcore, and like even before state champs, maybe when I was in middle school, 12, 13, my first band was a metalcore band that I was the screamer in. So it's really fun. That's how me and Tyler met, the guitarist in my band. He was also in a metalcore band fronted by his older brother, who was the screamer. Tyler played bass. And we started playing shows at like local veterans halls and churches in Albany. And then we got so sick of the heaviness in the mosh scene and stuff. We were like, you want to just hang out in our basement and like cover Cartel songs and like Fall Out Boy songs and stuff like that. So we started doing that. That's generally how state champs began. But you're right. Then we started playing these local shows. Bogies, that rundown punk venue with leaks all throughout the ceiling, was our dump. It was our dump that we threw all of our local shows at, and we played it until we were way too big for it because there was nothing else to go to. We were always opening for our favorite bands at the bigger venue. We opened for Bayside a bunch of times, Newfound Glory, a bunch of other big bands, until we were big enough to now headline it ourselves. So we do our own holiday show there every year. Around Christmas time, we call it Frozen Fest, and we do 2 nights there, actually. We do 2 nights, and it always sells out, which is pretty cool. It's a cool feeling now to know that where we came from, like scrounging. We used to pay to pay the promoters to let us open for bands like Bayside at those venues, and now it's cool to have a hometown and like actually build a scene now for what it is in Albany and upstate New York, which is, like you said, the middle ground of so many other cities. You know, you're in the middle. You're basically, what we like to say is you're 2 hours from everything. You're 2 hours from everything when you're in Albany. You can go down to the city. You can go over to Buffalo or Syracuse. You can go up to Montreal. You can go over to Boston. any direction, you're going to find a big city. And that's why so many people are fans of so many different teams, so many different cities surrounding, you know?
Yeah. So, like, was it discouraging when you were starting out? Like, were you guys ever considering relocating out of Albany because the scene wasn't really, like, you know, there weren't other bands that were in that pop punk scene? Like, I know of maybe two, like Northern Faces and Stellar Young. Like, those are maybe the two Albany bands that I knew of when I was there.
Yeah, well, there was a couple other ones as well. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, as I was saying, you got to go back in time because in the 90s, well, they started in the 90s, there was this really important pop punk band that was on Victory Records from Albany called Count the Stars.
Yeah, man.
And
they're from Count Delmar. The Stars, that's actually Caitlin's good friend. Her brother was in Count the Stars.
So like Count the Stars is like over time they've kind of lost like their luster because like there were like kind of like an older like 90s turn of the 2000s like pop punk band, which is a lot different than the pop punk bands of today, you know. And there are only a handful of bands have like been able to kind of like transition that, one of those being Bayside, really. I mean, you know, Bayside, you know, their first the split with Name Taken, I guess, came out in like 2002, and they were able to kind of make it work. But I think it's so interesting though, because you lock into like these hometowns, just as like, you know, you guys were saying, where it's kind of a little spread out, and it, you know, there's not as much in terms of pop punk bands. So I guess for you guys, right, kind of like almost spearheading the metric, how was that in terms of like taking the Albany scene from metalcore, hardcore, and like turning these kids into like, you know, pop punk rules again, you know, State Champs is dope. How was that a difficult thing to do, or did it just kind of happen for you guys?
I think it was kind of difficult, but there was a time frame from right when we started into like 2014 where like a big like revival of pop punk and the easycore movement and the transfusion, I like to call, of hardcore into pop punk. You know, obviously, like you were talking about, in the 90s it's totally different. That pop punk scene and pop punk was considered something totally different. I think in our era, when we started, 2010 was this big time for like bands like 4 Year Strong and Set Your Goals, who have these big backings from the hardcore scene and take influence from that stuff. And then it turned into the Wonder Years, Man Overboard, Transit, Polar Bear Club, A Loss for Words. Those are all those bands we looked up to and wanted to be like when we started as well. And those are all the bands that we eventually started opening up for, going on tours, bands that were our mentors, basically, like that were bringing us out as the openers. So I think it was definitely difficult to kind of like, we had to open for a lot of hardcore bands, is what I mean. We had to we had to play with a lot of shows that we did not make sense on. Even when we first started touring, we still like that stuff. So we ended up going on tours with a lot of other heavy bands, like random metalcore bands, and like Chunk, No Captain Chunk, and like we went on tour with Counterparts a bunch. We played a lot of shows with like the Acacia Strain, who's like local to us as well. So I mean, we kind of just like put ourselves in there. There's so many festivals where you see a lot of those bands from different genres from both sides of that anyway. Absolutely. So I don't think it was like crazy difficult. And going back to what you're talking about, like bringing up the Albany local scene, I don't think we saw that as a difficulty, because we loved the idea of being able to get out of town and grow us like as a band, and not only be a hometown band. We wanted to go out on these weekend tours and go down to Boston, or go out to Syracuse, or go to Long Island, go up to Montreal, play Toronto. We wanted to just get out and like, you know, get our name out there more, while at the same time coming back and playing local shows here and there. So yeah, it was a slow growth, I'd say, but I'm glad that we still got something going on, and we're still like surviving and creating a scene, and still, you know, bringing it up with the younger generation.
So I got to ask the burning question then.
Yeah.
Maybe a lot of people don't realize this, but one of the biggest like alternative music labels is actually headquartered in Albany, which is Equal Vision Records. So like when you guys are starting to blow up, like it would make like logical sense like to sign with Equal Vision. Like no disrespect to Pure Noise, because they are absolutely fantastic and you guys made the right choice. But like, was that ever a thought? Like, should we just sign with Equal Vision? Like they're right here in our backyard.
I think that would have been super ideal and makes total sense. But I don't think they gave a shit about us. I don't think they cared.
Wow. I'm sure they regret that now.
Maybe they do now. I don't know. But like we used to make demos and send and punish. Man, I used to be on email sending our songs and new demos to every label: Hopeless, Fearless, Epitaph, Equal Vision, everybody. I was sending everything that we did. No responses ever, except for Pure Noise Records. They would always at least send us an email back. Nobody cared and wanted anything to do with us for, I would say, the first 2 years while we were making music. But Pure Noise, Jake from Pure Noise, is a one-man show back then. It was just him running it out of his mom's house back then, you know. But he would always reply and be like, "Thanks for sending this over. Let me know when you got something else." Like, at least he would give us that. You know, so there was hope there. And it wasn't until we finally sent him a demo of what ended up being one of the songs on our first album, or first EP that we did with Pure Noise, the song called Critical. We sent it to him, and that was the time, after maybe 4 or 5 emails before, 4 or 5 demos prior. That was the one where he listened, and I got a quick email back asking for my phone number. And he was like, "Okay, we need to get on the phone." I called all the guys first. I'm like, "Dudes, like, he wants to talk to me. I'll call you right back." Got on the phone, and basically it was a fast moving thing. He was like, "I'm interested. What do you think about doing a deal? Like, we can talk with the rest of the guys, but like, let's see what we can make happen." So he was the only one that took interest in us. The only offer we ever got, and the only thing we ever said yes to. There weren't other offers on the table back then. So we were like, we got to take this while it's hot, this is our only like opportunity, you know? So going back to that, yeah, Equal Vision would have been cool, but they missed out, I guess.
Yeah. And you know what, the other thing that I, you know, one thing I think is great is seeing a lot of these excellent bands that have really this longevity and this stripe of just staying with record labels because they treat them well, you know. So you guys as an example, you know, you've put out 3 full-length records and a couple of EPs, all of which you've done with Pure Noise. Mm-hmm. And you know, I look at the story so far and their lineage with Pure Noise, and then you look at a band, you know, like Turnover, who has done everything on Run for Cover Records, and you could probably make the argument that any of the 3 of those bands that I've just mentioned, you guys, The Source of Our and Turnover, if they wanted to take their hand, you know, if you wanted to take your hand and try to go major or do something crazy, I'm sure you've got, you know, the firepower to do it. But there's something about being comfortable with people who have your back. And like Turnover is that great example. Like it's staggering to me. Like I can count the times on like 2 hands that I've seen Turnover play in like basements on Long Island and in like crappy bars. And now like I hear Turnover songs in Target over the fucking Target radio.
It's crazy.
And it's just, but it's the same thing with like you guys in the story so far. It's just like you know, if you guys wanted to, you could just be like, you know, Epic Records, or I don't know, Domino Records, or I'm literally dating myself. I'm talking about like labels from the 50s.
You're going
and 60s.
Back, bro. You're going
right? Back. Yeah, way back. But I mean, like, but you could do that, but yet you don't. And I think that's a great thing. And I think it's a great thing also for these labels and for bands that have high hopes of, you know, getting to that plateau, because maybe for you guys at first, you know, Pure Noise was just like, oh, it's the only label that, you know, even wanted to respond to us. So we took the opportunity when we could. But now, you know, any band in 2020, if Pure Noise sends them an email, it's like, holy shit, man, like we're in. So I think that's super cool. I really do. And I love that.
Yeah, I think there's like a big sense of loyalty, you know, like that's what comes from that over time. And like, sure enough, it could have been a hit or miss situation. And like I said, it was the only label that reached out to us, that offered us something at the beginning. And for some bands, that's not how it goes. You know, it takes a while to find that right fit, and then they end up staying with the label. You know, you find that chemistry and that relationship with the label that lets you be creative, you know, lets you make your own decisions while also like providing you the things you need and guiding you in the right direction. That's something we've had with Pure Noise over the past 7 years now. Yeah, we've done 3 records, working on our 4th one. Our contract was actually up after the last one. So we did all the meetings. We met with everybody, and all those offers were there from every label, all of those indie labels that are in our world. And we even did, we did the major thought too. We went out and got schmoozed by a major label, and like they said they could do so much for our band, and then like it just kind of went away. And like I'm glad that it did, because we have something special with Pure Noise, and we didn't want to really jeopardize that. And it's the same way, like you said, with bands like The Story So Far, Turnover. You know, you see that, and like you notice that, and that's why those bands stay afloat, and why and their relevancy like remains. You know, it's something that I think we're very fortunate for, something that we shouldn't take for granted. You know, because you hear the horror stories, you know, about so many bands like getting screwed over by this or that and whatnot. So we're pretty fortunate, I'd say.
Yeah. Jake was actually one of our first guests on the podcast, like I think episode 8.
Oh, you guys had Jake?
Oh, yeah. And,
oh, man, I got to go back and watch it. That'd be funny.
Yeah. So, like, way back when we were first getting started, and just such an awesome dude. And it's, like, crazy to think that we had an hour conversation with the owner of one of our favorite labels that has literally put out pretty much all of our favorite music. So it was just so, like, he's such a down-to-earth dude and huge hockey fan. So, like, when you guys were starting to get to know each other, like, did that come up pretty quickly?
Yeah, it did. But I don't think, like, we really got into it until, like, you know, he moved to LA and, like, became a huge Kings fan, season ticket holder. Obviously, whenever I'm in town, I'm like, are we going to a game? You know, so so that plays into it too. But more than that, like, he was reffing for a while. He plays in a league still. Yeah, he's a huge hockey fan. So like that obviously plays into our friendship and our relationship as well. We're always talking hockey. We'll be texting about stuff. You know, that also goes into it. You know, someone like that, not every band or every member in a band like considers their label CEO just a homie that you text about random stuff. We're talking about fantasy hockey. We're talking about skating. We're talking about whatever. It's anything. Old punk stuff. Like, it's so cool to have that relationship, but also he's the guy that, you know, lets us have a career and like provides what we need to make records, to let us do our thing. So it's like, it's cool to have that two-way relationship that's like very solid, you know?
For sure. And I guess like adjacent to Pure Noise, and like it does cross over a lot, is Jake's relationship with like Hammer and Violent Gentlemen. And I know that you guys have done like a few shirts, or at least one shirt I know of, definitely. So yeah. You mentioned that you're currently recording your next full length. Are you guys in talks of doing like a special variant with just Violent Gentlemen? Like I know
I hope so.
I know Seaway just did one, 4 Year Strong just did one, and I feel like that's the direction, like that exclusive Violent Gentlemen variant, man.
Yeah, right. It's becoming like a staple thing with them. I'm so glad they do it. Yeah, we've done collabs with them, like on Warped Tour when they went out on the tour. I think we did like a Rangers ripoff, or we did a Team USA ripoff back once as well. I think we've done a few at this point. I can only hope that they're down to do some more collabs, because I mean, Violent Gentlemen is another example of a brand and a lifestyle that's been built from the ground up by those guys. They're doing such a good job over there, and they've always been super nice to us. They'll let us come crash the warehouse whenever we're in town and whatnot, and steal a bunch of shit. So it's pretty cool. And yeah, I can only hope we could do one of those variations, one of those variants soon again for the new record.
Hell yeah! So yeah, I guess you know, talking about labels and Violent Gentlemen, I want to talk about your own clothing line, because you also have Steve's brand, and I was looking at your promo photos, and it looks like they were literally taken in front of my old apartment in Troy, New York. Did you guys?
Yeah, they were in downtown. That's funny.
Is that right on River Street? Because that's where I lived. I lived at the Hudson, which is right there on River Street. And honestly, if those brownstones in Troy weren't in such bad shape, there's a chance that I would have stayed in Troy and bought one of those brownstones and like did a renovation. But like everyone I talked to said, like, don't do it. Like all the pipes, all the electrical stuff has never been updated since like the late 1800s. Like, don't do it.
Yeah, it's such an old city, like, and it doesn't have the best reputation or whatever, but it's getting better. I'm thinking about getting an apartment. But there's so many big new apartment buildings being built down there in Troy.
Oh, really?
So I'm thinking about it myself, but I don't blame you for getting out of there.
I really can only speak highly of my time living in Troy. Like where I was an awesome spot. I lived on top of my barber shop. There was an awesome bagel place right down the road that I walked to. My favorite bar was right across the street. Like it was an awesome location.
Which bar was it? Which bar was it, Mikey?
Tom, this is my segue, dude. You're fucking it up, man. And that bar that I'm talking about is actually how I know of state champs. So I can actually pinpoint the day that I found out about state champs. Like I can't do that with any other band. And the reason I can pinpoint the exact day is because there was one of the most important hockey games of my lifetime on that day. And that's the TJ Oshie shootout game.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so that goes back, and I wrote down the date. February 15th, 2014 is when I found out about state champs. And I'll tell you the whole story because it's just fucking crazy.
I got to hear this now. Yeah.
So my best friend from Long Island and his wife came up to visit me, and it was to watch some of those Olympic games. So we went to Brown's, which is in Troy, like Brown's Brewery, and we watched the USA-Russia game. And it was an afternoon game. I remember, like, there was maybe 5 other people in Browns. So, like, we were doing some day drinking, and my buddy was like, yo, I got a good buzz. I want to go sing karaoke. Where can I sing karaoke? I'm like, dude, there's nowhere to sing karaoke in Troy.
I doubt it.
And I was like, you know what? There's one place that's really freaking weird, but I love it. Like, let's just pop in there. And it was Footsie Magoo's. Do you know Footsie Magoo's?
Yeah. I still hang out there.
Yeah. So Footsie Magoo's is like, there's no sign that would even let you know it's a bar, and they always keep the lights so dim. So like you walk by and you're like, is this like a cafe? Like, what is this? And I was like, you know what? My buddy's here. Let's go into Footsie Magoo's. It's kind of a quirky place, and there's no one else in there because it's like 3:00, maybe 4:00 in the afternoon now because the game just ended. It's early evening, and the only other person in there is the bartender. And they had one of those like fancy jukeboxes that you can like pay like $20 and like pick whatever song. So I always like whenever I see like those jukeboxes, I put in like $30 and I just like City and Color, Bayside, whatever they have that like is kind of popular. Yeah. And the bartender was loving it. And then like we just started talking. I was like, yeah. And I was shitting on Albany. I was like, man, I just wish that there was like good music here. And he's like, dude, have you ever heard of State Champs? And I'm like, no, like, who are they? So, like, he played your music for me, and I was like, holy shit, like, I had no idea that you guys were from Albany or anything, and that was the day that I found out about State Champs at Footsie Magoo's.
That's funny. I wonder who it was. I wonder who that bartender was. I probably know who that is. It's funny, I still hang out there at Footsie Magoo's. Like, that's still a go-to spot, and you're right. You wouldn't know it's a bar. There's no sign. Like, and that's kind of why, like, me and my friends like it. Like there's no one ever there. It's kind of just like a place to go and hang out, you know. But that's really, really funny. I probably know who that is too.
Yeah, and speaking of that bar, like there's all these like little rooms and little pockets in that bar too. It's like a huge bar too, and you would not know from looking at the front of the.
They got a darts room. They got a skee ball room. They got a little room with foosball. I like, if I'm drinking, I need to be like doing something, like playing an activity. So that's my spot, dude. It's awesome.
There you go. Absolutely,
dude. It's like that episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where like Charlie's trying to blow the sign off the bar because when you don't have a sign on your bar, it's way more posh and awesome.
It's cooler automatically.
It's way cooler because there's no sign. So I'm not like Mikey is the guy who likes to go in order, and I hate to go in order. So when a thought pops into my head, I'm just gonna go for it, and I'm just gonna go for it. So I know with the last record you guys put out, you guys worked with Feldman, right?
Yeah.
All right, so I'd love to hear a little bit about that because, like, you know, John. So okay, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1. First of all, right? So that was my introduction to Goldfinger, and I've always loved like Goldfinger. We had Darren, you know, on the show as well. You know, he's a big hockey fan, but John Feldman is just, from everything that I've heard about him, he's a little quirky, but he's got so much good input because he's been around this kind of music for so long. So what was it like working with John? Like what did he do in terms of like melding your music? Did he have a lot of input, or was it just like, I love what you guys are doing, let's just roll with it?
John is a crazy, positive, influential person to me. It was a definitely crazy experience, and very different for us as a band. We're not used to like being one to, go to Calabasas and work with these big songwriters and producers. We're a pop punk band from Albany playing with venues with leaks in the roof, so we don't know about that. So we go there, and I'm right there with you. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1, my first introduction to Goldfinger as well. And I think I saw Goldfinger a long, long time ago as a little kid. And I just knew that they were punk rock. They were pop punk. That's what they were known as. But this guy, where he's at now, I mean, he's a genius. I've learned so much from John Feldmann, even from the 2-3 weeks we spent with him. His process is unlike anybody else's. He's so quick and fast paced and energetic and positivity. And we were meditating with him at his house before every session. We had never meditated before. He's like, yeah, come in my living room. We're all going to lay down. He's got these godlike speakers that play this meditation thing for 15 minutes at 9 a.m. before every session. And he's like, don't feel free to let the emotions take you over, bro. We closed our eyes, got way into it. 15 minutes later, we open our eyes. Everyone's bawling. We're all crying, but we're ready to write. Now we're all right, let's go write a song, dude. It's crazy. John Feldmann would play therapist to me essentially. We'd go away outside, take a hike, talk about life, and then we'd come back to his house. He'd be like, let me at least get an idea. I'm gonna go take a walk. I'm gonna go find the song. That's what he says. And then he takes a guitar and he walks around his house. He walks outside. He's playing a little thing here, playing a little thing over here. And then 15 minutes later, he'll come back to you what do you think about this? And it's a perfect idea for a song. And then he's like, now you sit and write the lyrics. Okay, I'll see you in 15 minutes. It's such a crazy process. It's not always like that, but he's the type of guy that's this song's got a beach vibe. Let's go surfing. This song sounds like you're driving down the highway fast and with the windows down. Let's go take the mics in the car and we'll go record vocals driving down the highway. He's that kind of guy. Do stuff like that. Such a
awesome.
In the moment, spur of the moment impulse, but positivity and energy and just go. And I get why a lot of people just can't really mesh with that quick. And he's not the best fit for everybody, but we had a great time with him. We learned a lot about him and we got a lot of good songs. So definitely an interesting experience. You can tell that he's been through a lot and he's got stories, man. He's got a lot of stories about where he comes from too. A very cool dude. And I love the experience,
Awesome. I really appreciate that insight, man. It's, I think that's one of the greatest things about this podcast. I say it all the time, but it's when am I ever going to get to talk to someone who could be yeah, John Feldmann told me to make that chord a C sharp. And I was like, I don't know, John. He was like, make that chord a C sharp.
He's pushed me to my limits. He was the first guy to ever go, all right, so for this song today, it was a writing session. We're going to write a song today. He says, go in the vocal booth and sing me a song. And we just and he just would shove me into the vocal booth, and maybe we'd have a note, one note on a keyboard, and he'd just say sing. No one's ever made me do that. We don't have any ideas. We don't know what's happening. And I'm so nervous. It's maybe one of the first couple days that we're there. And he just says, sing. And then we build a song off of whatever I sang, in that first minute. And somehow we came out with a song. I think there is a song that we ended up using for that record. I couldn't tell you which one it is. But that's how he works. It just puts people outside of their comfort zone. And that's something that a band like us kind of needed, We're used to just 5 guys in a room jamming with acoustic guitars. That's the kind of thing that breaks the ice and I don't know, makes you think differently about music, about songwriting. It's a cool thing that now I take into the way that I write songs with other bands. I've been doing a lot of producing, songwriting. That's where I am right now. I'm in Indiana, out working with other bands, producing right now. So I take all of that knowledge and put it into everything that I want to do with other artists and with my own music moving forward. It's really cool.
Hell yeah. And I guess we could tie it back to Albany because you have produced Young Culture. So now, do you feel because you guys made Albany work, now you have these young buck bands that are loving pop punk that are going to take the Albany scene to what the Boston scene used to be or the Long Island scene used to be?
I can only hope so. I mean, it's cool that we've got a younger generation and bands. Like, I just hope I just hope kids still want to start bands. You know, I hope that that's not a thing. You know, there's so many.
Yeah.
It's the rapper scene, it's the SoundCloud scene, the Post Malones of the world. I love all that stuff, man. I love all kinds of music, but I hope there doesn't come a day where like kids aren't starting bands anymore. You know, like I fear that day. So it's really cool to have bands still doing that, and in our scene, especially Young Culture, for an example, like they were opening our local shows a long time ago under different names, and they're super young kids, super nice, super positive, and I've been working with them from the start. Now they have a deal with Equal Vision, and they could be the next big thing. So you know, it's really cool to see that happening, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. I'm glad that they still ask me to come around and help them with stuff. So it's really fun.
Hell yeah, love that.
Yeah.
So I guess I want to talk bucket list because, you know, you guys have done a lot in the scene. Like you know, I'm sure when you guys were starting out, you were like, man, I just want to get signed. I would love to play Warped Tour, and then like the final Warped Tour, you guys played main stage and played the whole entire thing. So like, I'm sure after you do something like that, you have to reevaluate what are your bucket list items as a band. So like, what is State Champs hoping to accomplish with this next album? Are you like trying to get on an NHL soundtrack? Are you trying to play the Winter Classic? Like what sky's the limit? Like what are you guys hoping to accomplish?
I think we always come back to the sky is the limit with us. And like, we do have these talks and we sit back and we're like, what do we want to do now? What do we want to do next? And I think that's really important for bands and artists, is to always have bucket list. What's that next thing that you want to do? We did that for years. It's like, oh, we want to play Warped Tour. We want to play main stage Warped Tour. Now we want to play on the main stage at Reading and Leeds Festival in England, you know, and that was a big thing for us as well. Now we want to headline the Roundhouse in London, which is a 3,000 capacity in London. Like that would be our bucket list thing. Sold it out. Like it's so cool, like to watch these things happen. But then you're like, what the heck do you do next? I would love to play the Winter Classic. That was a great idea. I don't know, man. I think it's just at this point too, the longevity and being able to do it as long as we can. You look at bands that have been doing it as long as this in this world. Bands like Newfound Glory and Sum 41, you know, like that are just still going and still doing it for as long as they can, and like shedding influence on younger bands as well. You look at a lot of bands that have blossomed into other things and gone into different into the mainstream, like Fall Out Boy, you know, like that's really cool too. That's something we talk about as well. We've always talked about, do we want to be a radio band? Do we want to get a radio hit single? Or do we just want to like keep growing the rooms and like keep our community growing and like just do us? And then we talk about our next record. It's like, do we want to go in some different direction, or do we want to go back to our roots, you know, and go back to like just like what's fun for us to play? I think that's another thing with us too, is keeping everything fun. We're never going to put anything out or make any music that we're not stoked on and want to listen to ourselves. So that's one thing that we always keep saying, you know, is just keep it fun. If it ever really starts to feel like a job and a chore, then we're probably doing it for the wrong reasons at that point. So it's like, just keep it fun, man. Keep it loose. That's easier said than done when you've been a band for 10 years. But we have a lot of talks about it, and we're very transparent about it within the guys in the band. So I think as long as we keep doing that, we can fight like brothers. We can hang like brothers. We need our distance when we're not on tour. Then we miss each other and we go back on tour. There's a big cycle there. So we're going to do that as long as we can and keep building, you know? That's the whole story with Champs.
Now,
love it.
You mentioned, you know, some of those iconic pop punk bands like the Simple Plans and the Sum 41s that, you know, have made a lifelong career out of this.
Yeah, Good Charlotte.
Good Charlotte.
You know?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Even Bayside in that caliber, like that, you know,
yeah.
they're in that same conversation. You guys did a tour with Bayside, and that last, I mean, not Bayside, with Simple Plan, and that last Warped Tour, you guys were playing main stage, you know, side by side. And like, I remember at the Charlotte date, they had the main stage kind of split in half, and there was like kind of just alternating the whole day. And I stayed in that amphitheater the whole entire day. That was like the best Warped Tour I ever had. Like, I'm used to going to Randall's Island on Long Island and like just being caked in mud, and then like going to Charlotte and sitting with a ceiling fan over. I was just loving it. And
it's the best days on Warped Tour when we play in the amphitheater, because like, you know, it's enclosed. We know everyone's gonna want to get out of the sun and be in there, so you can stay in there all day. Yeah, it's wonderful.
So you know, you actually went out and were singing on, I think it was "I'm Just a Kid," right?
I'm Just a Kid, yeah, with Simple Plan.
And I remember that was actually the first time I ever seen Simple Plan live, even though, like, growing up in the pop punk scene, since the early 2000s, it just never worked out. And I remember watching Simple Plan and, like, people losing their minds. I'm like, man, they're fucking rock stars. Like, they're not just like a pop punk band, they're rock stars. And the way I knew this was there was actually a girl that got on top of her boyfriend's shoulders and flashed them. And I'm like seeing this from the corner of I'm like, I thought that only happened in the 80s for like hair metal bands. Like, that happens for Simple Plan? Like, what is going on?
That doesn't happen anymore too. People think that that's such a rock star thing. Like, oh, that must happen all the time. No, it's such a rarity. Like, but they are rock stars. They've been doing it for so long, man. They're pros.
I mean, like, the Blink-182 live record, like, that came out in the late 90s. Like Mark and Tom were still getting flashed and talking about it on record for everyone to hear. But yeah, there's a crazy lineage, and I think that's seeing the old guard come together with the new guard is super cool. So state champs and Simple Plan. When Good Charlotte went out on tour, I forget who they. Yeah, the story so far, right? And and even when the early November kind of did their comeback, they ended up taking Wonder Years out with them. So it's like
that's right.
Kind of the old guard and the new guard, which I really love. So I'm not going to let you get out of here until we talk some hockey, and we got to dig into it. So first and foremost, put a sear curtain on Preds, right? 7-0, I think it was.
The other night.
Yeah.
We're off to a great start, and I'm happy with that. It was a crazy thing that the season was supposed to start a couple weeks for them, and then 16 players on the Stars got COVID, so they had to delay.
Right?
So here we are, 2 games in. Everybody else has played like 6 or 7 games, but at least we can call ourselves undefeated for now. There's you could tell they were ready to play, needless to say. So it's looking good so far. I think it's pretty awesome that teams are playing the same teams so much. Everything is like a little series right now with how many games they have to cram in. So I think it's going to make for great hockey. It's going to be aggressive. It's going to get chippy. It's going to be really cool. I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing. What we've talked about a lot is how this is going to build rivalries. It's gonna stoke the flames of old rivalries. We've talked about it a bunch. The Islanders and Rangers have had that storied rivalry for so long, but it's kind of fizzled out over the past couple of years, just because the Rangers were kind of not a great team. And then the same, happened when the Islanders went through their rough years, where the Islanders were a terrible team and the Rangers were a little bit better. And that rivalry didn't mean as much. But now, you're talking about playing each other 8 times, right? And the Rangers, even though right now the Islanders, we took one from them, they took one right back from us. But the Rangers are trying to rebuild that organization, so I think it's going to be an awesome thing. But for you guys, I mean, you guys are going to be pretty much building some storied rivalries from this now. So
yeah, we don't really have a rival. Like the Stars, I mean, I guess you call the Blues one of their rivals, the Preds too, I guess. But I mean, they never really had like a serious rival. At least I don't think,
Yeah, I wouldn't say so. I would probably say the Blues for sure.
Yeah.
I guess you'd probably say the Hawks, sort of, I guess, but that's obviously a little bit different this year. But so talking 2021 Stars, what are you excited for? Like, is there anyone that you're on the team that you're looking at that's maybe not a superstar that you think can be a superstar? Anyone that you're really looking at closely to see what they'll be able to do?
For the past couple of years, I've been really excited about Miro Heiskanen. I think he's a phenomenal player, and I think he's so young, and he's going to be a star. He already is becoming a star. But what really surprised me at the end of the playoffs last year was this guy, Yoel Kiviranta. who ended up scoring some overtime winners. And it's just a young kid that wasn't getting much ice time, but now he's in the line. I put him on my fantasy team this year, so really hope he does well. There's a couple young stars, and I mean, it's cool to have some older talent too, kind of leading the way with Pavelski doing really well and still playing great hockey. Yeah. But the leaders really need to step up. I think Jamie Benn needs to have a great year again. He needs to start putting points on the board, and Tyler Seguin needs to get healthy, and then I think we'll be in good shape. So we'll see,
So you mentioned Jamie Benn, and I thought I was like just giving Tom like an alley-oop with the talking about Simple Plan, and he just did not transition there. But whatever, Tom's a rookie, whatever. So let's talk about that, because on that Simple Plan tour. Chuck told us that he was eating dinner at some restaurant in Dallas, and Jamie Benn walked in, and he invited him to your show, and he actually came. So, like, did you have any idea that Chuck let you know beforehand that was happening, or was that like a surprise? You walked off stage, and then in your green room is Jamie Benn and like some of the Dallas stars?
No, he didn't fucking tell me, and he didn't do it on purpose. I think he didn't do it on purpose. Their photographer had to come in and tell me, "Did you know Jamie Benn's here?" I'm like, "You're fucking kidding me, man. No way." He's like, "Yeah, no, they're side stage watching the show right now. Do you want to go down?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go punish him. Like, I want to go ask him a bunch of questions." And he's like, "All right, hold on. Like, maybe not yet," because they know I'm gonna go down and like ask him a bunch of questions. And I'm like, "Not really, not like that." But that was the one time, man. Everyone asks like, what's the fanboy moment that you've had, like whether it's with another musician? I've never really had it with another musician. That was the moment. Like, they brought me down side stage, and he was there. He brought his brother Jordy Benn, because the Canucks were in town. They were going to be playing them the night after or something. So him and a couple other players were around. It's so funny that he just ran into him at dinner and invited him. He's like, "Oh yeah, I know Simple Plan. I'll bring my boys." What the heck? That just goes to show what Simple Plan
exactly,
like
rock stars,
their platform. Like Jamie Benn going, "Oh, Simple Plan, I love you guys. Yeah, I'll come to the show." And that was like a half hour before that. It just rolls up. He was really, really nice though. And it was right before I had to go on stage to sing with Simple Plan, like for our song together, the "Where I Belong" collab song that we did.
Yeah.
Yep. So I did that, and it was immediately after that he was side stage. I put on my Dallas Stars Stanley Cup champion shirt right before then to go on stage. Came off stage. He's right there. I got introduced by their photographer. It's like, "Nice shirt. I've never seen that one." Like, and it's almost like he was gonna like buy it off me or something like that. So that was the icebreaker. We got talking about some stuff, and it was just cool, man. I was like lording out, like basically just like asking every question I could. So what's like this, like, asking him about being a captain and stuff, being a leader, and we're relating that to being a front man. It was pretty cool, the conversation that we had. And then what we came back to was like, what we realized is like, musicians want to be athletes like that. Dude, and athletes want to be musicians.
We talk about that all the time.
Yeah, so that's where it came down to. He was like, "Man, I wish I could do what you do, like playing shows every night." I'm like, "Are you kidding me, man? I want to do what you do." So it was a cool little conversation. I didn't like want to go too long and like start embarrassing myself. I totally would have, and I probably did. But like, whatever. We got some pictures together. I will hold them dearly for the rest of my life, and I hope that we can be in touch. That's really it. It was that moment for me, the fanboy moment.
I love it. Now,
yeah.
Do you have any other like stories of other NHL players that are fans of state champs? Do you know of any?
There's a couple guys on the Bruins. I get like random messages, but like, and I get a lot of like stories from friends that know other players, but like, who knows, like if they're telling the truth or not. But not that I know of. I would love for them to show face though. If anybody's listening, like hit me up. I want to talk to you. Like, I love talking hockey with anybody, especially like getting the stories from the pros themselves. So it's really, really cool. I did want to tell a story about my first time ever going to a Dallas Stars game. I think it was in like 2014 or 15.
Hell yeah.
And it was because you brought up how like the Hawks may have been a rival of theirs at one point.
Mm-hmm.
First game I ever went to, first ever Stars home games. Sorry, the first Stars home game is when we were on tour in Dallas. We played a festival, and then I immediately like found some tickets in the nosebleeds, and I went and watched the Stars play the Hawks. And they didn't score. They got shut out. I think it was 13-0 by the Hawks that year. It was so bad. It was one of the years that the Hawks ended up winning the cup. So like 2014 or 15, one of those years. But what was awesome is it was the year that that Jágr played the 1 year with the Stars, which was really exciting to see. So that was a really cool thing to watch, you know. That's it though. That's it. The story is the first home game Stars game that I got to go to. They got blown out like 13-0 by the Hawks, and I was very let down.
Yeah, I forgot that Jágr played for the Stars.
Jágr played that 1 year, and like that was pretty cool to see him in a Stars jersey.
I went to my first baseball game in Philly at Citizens Bank. It was a Mets Phillies game, and the Mets got beaten like 16-0. And I was told, I was dating a girl from Philly at the time. And we're about to go into Citizens Bank. I'm about to put my Mets jersey on. She's like, "Don't do it." And I'm like, "What do you mean, don't do it?" I'm like, "What the fuck? You know who you're talking to? Like, I'm ultra Met fan, #1 Met fan." And she's like, "Please don't do it." She's like, "We're going to have a bad time if you do it." So I'm like, "All right, fine. I won't do it." Sure as shit, I saw like a girlfriend and boyfriend couple, probably 20-something, walk in, both wearing Mets gears. Bro, this girl got a hot dog just thrown at her. Hot dog, full hot dog, ketchup, mustard, all the fixings you want on your hot dog, all over this chick. And the dude like turned around to be like a dude and be like, "Well, you throwing a hot dog at my girlfriend?" And like 20 Phillies fans were like, "What are you gonna do about it?" And he was like, "I'm gonna walk off."
Yeah, I bet, dude.
My
that's
hot
scary.
dog girlfriend. But like, so that kind of feeling, right? Like you feel it when like especially with I know from us as Islanders fans, you know, like Islanders Flyers games, and like you feel it with you know, yeah, maybe not so much obviously with the Rangers, maybe not so much with the Devils, but like, you know, so have you ever had that experience of being in like another city, like with your Stars gear, just getting like eviscerated?
You know, I've kind of found the cheat around that, and because now I've had to do it for a long time. At Madison Square Garden and in Newark when they play the Devils, I'm always one of the only guys in green. You know, luckily I always wear a Madonna jersey, so someone will always end up looking at the back and go, "Okay, a little bit of respect, Madonna, nice." You know, but when I'm down anywhere, if there's any good seats or whatever, and I know I'm not in a safe zone, there's no chance I'm not wearing a Stars jersey, so I always will. So, but you just got to buy a beer for the guy next to you. That's all you got to do is like you get down to your seat, have an extra beer, and give it to the most threatening guy around you that looks like they would chirp you hard, you know. And I've been chirped like pretty like, and I could take it. I don't really care. Nothing like that. I've never had things thrown at me, luckily. But to everybody out there that, you know, you're worried to wear your team's colors at an away game, grab an extra beer, give it to the most threatening person next to you.
Love that.
And you know, funny, and another funny story, just so you know, apparently that's the way to get to like the lower bowl when you're at a Carolina Hurricanes game. All you have to do is have 2 beers in your hand, and the security will just be like, "Oh, 2 beers, you guys belong here." And then you just get to go all the way from like way up top to like right on the ice.
That's like the code, the unwritten law. Like, dude, oh, this guy's got 2 beers, you're good.
Someone told us that, like, because Tom's actually like he's basing this on an actual story. So like this really happened. So we're like at the bar before a Hurricane Islanders game, and we were way up top, and the guys that we were talking to at the bar, they're like, "Yo, we know this trick. All you need to do is get 2 beers and walk in like you own the place, and the ushers won't even stop you." So we're like, "Hey, let's give it a shot." Sure enough, all of us, there was like 4 of us, 2 beers in each of our hands, just walked right past the usher, right down to like, you know, $150 seats, and stayed there the whole game.
Now, is that just because you got 2, so they think you're carrying it for someone down there? Is that the idea?
They just think like, oh, they got 2 beers. He's not going to be able to reach in his pocket to check, like, to get the ticket stub out.
Okay. Or like whatever, like just a popcorn and a beer or something like that. Like, your hands are full. Sorry, buddy. I'm going.
I'm
down there, guy.
Yeah. We didn't test the popcorn and beer theory. We tested the 2 beer theory.
The 2 beer theory works.
You can't say anything about popcorn didn't work. They're like, no Carolina Hurricanes fan would have popcorn.
He just takes the popcorn. He's like, I'll hold this. Let me see your ticket.
Exactly. We've kind of explored a little bit, talking about, how you guys had this great relationship with Pure Noise, and you're working on this, this new record. Just curious, I know you probably got to be a little bit tight-lipped about it, but as far as a new record is concerned, what are we in for? Like, have you kind of made a decision? Because I know you were pontificating before, saying, do we want to go in a different direction? Do we want to go back to our roots? So, for like the State Champs fans that are listening and that are really kind of interested, where do you want to take this new record? Like, what if it was you, like you specifically? Because I mean, you're 20% of a band that has all of the creative input, but if you wanted to take this in a direction, where would you want to go with it?
I think we've taken it. Like, it's almost done at this point, and yeah, it's almost done. I'm gonna go out in March and finish it. I gotta sing some songs. I gotta do some vocals. But we took a lot of time. We wrote a lot of songs, honestly, and like, we're never afraid to just write a good song that we think is a good song. We don't think about, well, we need to go and we need to be more, we need to be heavier, or we need to be like poppier. We don't think about that. We'll write some poppy songs, write heavy songs, this and that. But the overall, like, of what I'm getting is, we have 3 records now. We have like the bare bones pop punk record. We have the little more like produced middle ground, like Around the World and Back, our second one. And then maybe like we took some chances on the third one where we went in a little different directions and overproduced or tried some new things, whatever. I think there's going to be a little bit of everything on this next one. And if anything, leaning back more towards our rooty pop punkness and like edgier, energetic, and more along the lines of our second record, I would say, Around the World and Back. All in all, like I say, there wasn't one thing said on we need to go back to this or we need to do this. We just sit down and write songs, and we wrote a bunch. We must have wrote like 26, 27 songs. Oh. And then we wrote each song on a flashcard and then started like mixing them around. Which ones do we like the most? And then we ended up with what we think is going to be this next record. I'm really excited about it. So, a little bit of everything as far as what we've done in the past, and then some. Like, these are the best songs we've ever written. It's going to be sick. It's going to be dope. I can't wait to share it.
Can't wait to hear it.
Yeah.
So, Derek, I got one final question for you. Hard to Please. Tell me about the music video. How did that come about? Were you just like, I'm doing this, I don't care if it has anything to do with the song or not, I'm somehow having a hockey music video?
Yep. First music video that we had a budget for that came from Pure Noise. Hockey music video. Sorry, boys, that's what we're doing. And it's my local hockey rink where I grew up playing, and I know the owners very well, good family friends. So I said, here, like, about where I'm at now. I've got this record deal, and we have this budget for a music video. What's it going to take to let us use the rink for a day or two and try and do this music video? They ended up giving it to us for free. They gave us a full day, like dawn to dusk, and we just came out with the Hard to Please music video. We got some friends to come out and be like the kids in the bleachers. Our manager and our management team are the coaches on each side. All my old hockey buddies we got jerseys printed by our merch company, like to be the dark team and the light team, and a script written by Rob Susi, the director. And it was super fun, man. We did just like mess around most of the day and like play pickup. And then like every like half hour, they'd be like, all right, can we film a fucking scene? Like, and big fight scene at the end. We did put a bunch of fake blood on us. It's a little silly. There's like, we're like waving at girls in the stands, and, we're fighting over girls' attention in the bleachers. But then it's the Zamboni guy that ends up getting the girls at the end of the music video. That's the storyline. It's super silly. It's pop punk. It's immature, but that's what we were about back then. And yeah, there was no way I wasn't going to not do a hockey music video as the first one that's fueled by record label money that's not mine. So had to do it. No shame.
Hell yeah, man. And, it just makes you think, there are a few others floating around there. Do you know of any others? Hockey music videos? I
looked it up at the time, and I found a couple other ones, but I don't remember what bands. Did you guys look it up?
So our homies in Envy on the Coast, they're big New York Islander fans. They actually filmed their video on the Coliseum ice.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So look that
That's
one up.
Cool.
That's a good one.
I got to check that one out for sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to look at it. I was like, have any bands done like what we're trying to do here, like on a hockey rink and stuff? But the fact that it was given to us for free, I was like, we got to just do this, you know? Like we got to just go for it. Yeah.
Hell yeah. I think that's what kind of like opened up my eyes. I was like, when I got into state champs and that was the first video I saw, I was like, oh shit. And they're hockey fans. Like, that's what's up. So then like, you know,
I look like such a douche in it too. I'm like wearing sunglasses while playing hockey. It's like, who does that? It's so bad. Looking back on it now, I mean, it's like 7 years old, but whatever. No regrets, I guess.
No,
man.
I love it. I love it.
No regrets at all. So, so I'm gonna just ask one last thing. You know, you said you're kind of into producing and stuff now. You know, give us a beat on someone who you've worked with that you know hasn't broken through the mold yet, that you are really into. Someone that we can maybe put some new people onto.
There's this band I'm working with right now. They're from Michigan. They're called Last Night Saved My Life. They're an unsigned pop punk band. I did their first record with them. It's called Cherry, right here at the studio Always Be Genius out here in Crown Point, Indiana. And now they're in a brand new big studio, and it's fucking awesome. And I'm working on their second record with them. Last Night Saved My Life, they're called. And I think they could really take the scene by storm. So, and we're coming up with some awesome shit. It's only my second day with these guys, and like, coming up with a lot of cool shit, great vibes, good dudes, and anybody that hasn't checked it out, and if you're into this scene, into the pop punk stuff, make sure you check it out.
I definitely will. I'm all about that.
Yeah, man.
All right, man. Derek, honestly, this was a special episode 100. Special guest. Like, we really do appreciate this conversation that we got to have with you. And
100, man. That's super special. Congrats, you guys. Thanks for having me, dude.
I'm surprised that there's 100 dudes in this scene that love hockey and alternative music, like
and fuck with you guys.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But no, this was really, really fun. You guys are awesome, man. I would do it again. So thanks for having me, bro.
All right,
hell yeah, man.
We'll let you get back to being producer extraordinaire, frontman, designer, whatever else you got going on, man.
Thanks, man. Hey, here's to 100 more episodes. All right.
All right, man.
Thank you,
Cheers.
brother. You have a good one.
All right. Take care, boys.
Peace.